there was actually an elder in there, the absolute worst, but he basically read a scripture about being a harlot and a prostitute and all of these things. And he basically looked at me and said, that's what you are. And I didn't know at the time, right? I didn't know that what I was experiencing was really just a carbon copy of my father. You know, having someone that is narcissistic and emotionally unstable and someone that can become very volatile and abusive. And I did exactly what a Jehovah's Witness is trained to do, what you are programmed and brainwashed to do. And that was, I was like, you're crazy. You've been possessed by Satan and the demons. What have you been listening to? What have you been watching?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. We are back for another episode of ExJW Women Speak Out. I want to thank everyone for all the love and support you've been giving these amazingly strong women who are speaking out, and I'm just so thankful to be bringing you more and more stories. Today is an extra special one because I actually was on her own channel, kind of at the beginning of my YouTube telling my ExJW story time. So I'll also make sure to link that in my description of this video, but this is actually a friend of ours that I grew up kind of around. We knew of each other. She lived in the same area as us for a very long time, and she knew my husband growing up. So I would like for you all to welcome my friend Brooke.
Thank you.
And I also just wanted to kind of let you guys know a little bit about her background as far as from my side of things. So she is an amazingly strong woman who has actually recently released a book that I could not put down, just discussing her life growing up Jehovah's Witness and her life exiting and everything that she endured and went through in that process. She's an extremely strong woman, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear her story. So Brooke, let's start this little interview out with just tell me a little bit about your upbringing. I know you were born and raised in it like me as well, and I will just kind of let you take over from there.
Okay, thanks for having me here. And honestly, creating this space for all of us to be able to tell our stories is huge, because silence is when we allow what happened to us to keep people stuck. So this is beautiful that you've created this space for people to really just be organic and talk about what they need to talk about. For me, really, my upbringing was, I think, classic JW experience where everything was very strict. It was by the rule book. My parents did not divert whatsoever. So it was required of us to be perfect. So I always liken it to being raised as a Jehovah's Witness as living in a glass house. You are constantly under scrutiny. Like, you're constantly being told that everybody's watching you. My father always reminded me of this. Everybody's paying attention to you, Brooke. You need to be the example, Brooke. So I just heard this at a young age, honestly. I mean, I think when I started hearing this, I was like maybe 6, 7 when I remember it and I recall it, and having to pay attention to it. You know, starting kindergarten and having this experience of having to be different and, you know, not experience holidays and celebration time at school, and really, really wanting to do this. So I just remember that part about my childhood, and I hated being different. I hated it. But that was kind of the story as a Jehovah's Witness. Like, you were supposed to be different than the rest of the world. And so we had that really, like, just constantly ingrained in our brain that we were supposed to be the ones that were different. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be different. Like, I want to fit in. I want to be like the rest of the kids. I want to be doing the things the kids are doing. So I would say I was obviously already thinking about being rebellious even at a young age. I mean, I would grab the cupcake sometimes at birthday celebrations, even though I got sent to the library. Sometimes I'd be like, oh no, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to partake. I would, of course, feel guilty afterwards, right? And I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to pray to Jehovah, and then I'll feel better about it. So that was honestly my experience growing up. And I would hide that stuff from my parents. And I think that really taught me to, one, think that I had to be deceitful, because I couldn't really be who I wanted to be. And also that there was a God that was watching me, and I didn't care. I was like, okay, well, I'll just put them afterwards, but I'm still going to go and do the thing. So, just automatically a rebel, right? I just really did played that out in my whole entire life. But growing up, I think what I really witnessed in my own family, and this might feel true to some of the other people that have been a witness, it was a narcissistic family dynamic. My father was I would like to call the cult control leader. So he was basically the narcissist that was the controller of the entire family. Like not just my mother and my brother and myself, it was also extended to like his sisters and my grandmother, his mother, like just seeing how everything was so dysfunctional and like everybody was like hush hush and nobody talked about emotions and everybody tiptoed around what my father thought and what he expected of everybody. And so that was my experience growing up. I saw how my mother did this. She played the perfect Jehovah's Witness wife. She did as she was told. She did not speak up. She would swallow things down and suppress what she really felt when my father would tell her what to do or when he would lose his control, his anger. And that was it. So I saw what was modeled to me as a kid, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is what it's supposed to look like. This is what a dynamic in a relationship is supposed to be. I'm supposed to do as I'm told. I don't get to have a voice. So having that experience, obviously, I didn't realize it at the time, but that was shaping me into who I was going to become later on in life. So I think the restriction is the biggest thing as a Jehovah's Witness that we all probably can relate to, is that when you got a little older and you started to kind of want to go outside the boundaries of the JW rules, you start to like question certain things like, well, why can't I hang around a boy? Like, why can't I do these things? Why do I have to be chaperoned? Or why can't I just, kind of be a kid and be normal? Why do we have to do things in groups? Or, all of these kind of things. And that was me. I was really questioning these things and also going against the rules. And that may have been your experience too. I don't know what it was like for you and Lance, was it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think you mentioned something about how like you learn early on to not be like honest, be deceitful. I think you learn very early on to kind of live that double life. You are one person to your family in the congregation, and you're another person in the real world, like whether it's at school or with worldly family. In my case, it was like cousins that were my age that were not Jehovah's Witnesses. You play two different roles, and you learn so young to do that. It's sad, and it's also can be very dangerous. But it's just what that organization absolutely promotes to happen.
Completely. I think that what I started to witness, even as I got older, was like adults living these double lives. It really does. You continue to just be conditioned by what you learned to do when you were younger. And it was like the same thing happening as the adults and keeping that stuff in secrecy, that what you're doing, and not actually being honest about who you are, and actually really just living in a lot of guilt and shame. But it's like your own fault because you're not really having your own place to express who you truly are. And I just saw that so much in the organization as I, got into my 20s and witnessing these, people that one had married really young, which I was included in that. But, and realizing that really, if I would have chose this partner in a healthy space, would I have actually chosen this partner, and realizing that I hadn't. And that was a lot of what I saw happen around me. A lot of my friends were like realizing they'd married a partner that they were not compatible with. They did it out of the fact they thought they had to. The fact that we can't have sex before marriage is a whole other, component of this, of feeling like, well, I desperately want to be able to have sex, so you just get married young. I think it's a huge part of the religion. So I think there's so many factors of living that double life that come into play later in life. And I did that for a long time. As I got into my teen years, I started to find, boys and, skirt around the idea of dating. And I started that first experience when I was 12 years old. I was 12 years old, and I decided that I was going to date a boy that was worldly, quote unquote. So he was worldly boy, obviously, in my 6th grade class, and I saw all my other friends around me doing it. And at that age, I mean, you're not actually dating. You're like sending each other love notes, right? Like there's nothing really happening. It's just the fact that you're wanting to say that you're dating. And I had a Jehovah's Witness best friend, and she was in the class that was next door to mine. And we used to do everything together. Like I trusted her, and like we had so much fun together. But she found out about my boyfriend and she told on me. So we all know what happens when you get told on. You know, her dad was an elder, my dad was an elder at the time, and she went and tattled on me. Didn't even give me a heads up, like just went and told on me. I was like, wow, that's kind of rude. But the fact is that she did that, and it shattered my little heart because one, I thought that she would never throw me under the bus like that. But it was my first experience of like seeing my father go back into the elders room, right, in the back of the hall. And I just knew it was about me. Like intuitively, I even felt it. I was like, oh gosh, I just know this thing is about me. And sure enough, my dad comes out of the elders meeting and we get into the car on the drive home. He is expressing to me, you know, that he's been told something, and he's like, you know, do you have something to tell me? So he's trying to like basically help me to just confess, and I'm like, I'm not confessing this thing. There is no way. I'm like, nope, have nothing to tell you, nothing here. And he just keeps pressing me, and finally, you know, he gets me to break, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I have a boyfriend at school, and he is livid. I already can feel it coming into the car, but he's even more livid when I finally confess because I'd already been lying about it. And that was the experience where it not only broke my heart that she did that, but that my father, the way that he reacted, he was volatile. I got spanked when I was 12 years old. I'm like a young girl, right? And like, this is terrifying in itself as a young girl, getting your pants pulled down and spanked by your father. It's humiliating. Like, so I just remember being so humiliated, but there was something inside of me. There's just this fire inside of me where you're like, you know what? I'm not going to show you that you broke me. Like, I didn't even cry. I looked at my dad with a straight face and walked out of the room. And I think he wanted to break me at that moment. And I was like, you're not going to. Like, you will get nothing from me in this moment. I mean, that's how, I guess, defiant I was as a young girl. Like, I was like, no, I'm going to show you how strong I am. And of course, I went in my room and wailed afterwards and cried myself to sleep. But that experience in itself was so traumatizing for me that I lost my best friend that day. She never looked at me the same. Her elder dad told her, you cannot hang out with her anymore. She barely looked my way. Like, we still were in the same school all through junior high, all through high school. We were in the same kingdom hall. She didn't even look my way. She cut me off. And I know that experience was because her father told her to, but she actually did judge me. She did. And the crazy thing about this story that I've never actually told, this is being told here right now, is that she came to me like we were probably in our late 20s and we had gone to the same wedding. We were still Jehovah's Witnesses. And she came to me and she apologized for what she did when we were kids.
Oh, wow.
She actually felt really bad that she had done that to me. Like, one, she hadn't told me she was going to do that. She felt bad for actually just kind of shunning me, like, completely. I think she kind of realized like what her father kind of made her do, and she felt guilt for treating me that way, because that rejection of me in itself probably like ended up even more where I kind of felt like the first rejection of a friendship. And that, I mean, it left a scar, like, big time. Yeah. That was my first rejection of a really beautiful friend that I thought we were maybe best friends forever. But what it taught me was that I could handle rejection and still be okay. So I thank her for that. She's still currently a Jehovah's Witness. I hope she finds this one day. And she's like, oh, she's talking about me. And I hope that she wakes up too. So I would love to see that. But if she doesn't, that's okay too.
Yeah. It's I feel like it's just that kind of like tattletelling on people is just so prominent in that organization. Um, I mean, my best friend is the one who like turned me and Lance in and spilled the beans on like everything that had happened to us, and it was just like that same thing where it's just like I thought we were like closer. I thought we were like had each other's back. Like I would never have done the same in return, but I guess I think just the threat of like you potentially, because they always say like if you're aware of a sin, you also basically partaking in that sin. So they have that like ingrained so early on, and it just you can't trust anyone. There's no true friendships. There's no true relationships that in bonds in that organization.
Yeah, it is built off of superficial love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Superficial acceptance, right? Because the minute that you are not the same as them, you are discarded, you are rejected, and or the minute that they think that you're bad association, and that in that instance with that friend, that's what she thought of me,
Yep.
and she judged me from that moment on. But that didn't stop me. I mean, I didn't care. I still went and dated boys. I still went and dated boys. Again, here comes the rebel again, right? I just had a problem following the rules, or being told that I had to follow rules. Like it was just, and this is where me and my dad really butted heads because, of course, he wants his girl to be the perfect example. He wants me to dress appropriately. He wants me to act appropriately. He wants me to look like this amazing Jehovah's Witness girl. And he wants me to be up on conventions, right? He wants me to be doing the things that all of the other people are doing. And I'm like, but these people are nerds. That's what I'm thinking of. Like for me, I'm thinking, but they're so nerdy. Like they're just acting like they're so perfect and so present and so like they're perfectly laid out and everything that they're saying on the convention. And like I just was trying so hard to fit into a box that I didn't fit in. And I was like,
Yep.
I don't want to be a nerd. I want to be a cool kid that goes and does some of this wild stuff. Like, but you're wanting me to be this pioneer that is this subservient person to my, not only you, dad, but also to Jehovah. And that just wasn't happening. And so I continued to kind of like slip up and be kind of the wild child and test my boundaries, test my limits, go and do some things where I shouldn't have been doing them. And that led me to the boy that I discovered around 15 years old. And it was so funny because honestly, when I first saw him like from afar, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, he's a dream. Like I'll never be able to have him. He is, as a witness girl, like that's what we used to do, right? We used to walk around the convention and like looking for the boys. I,
Yes.
I heard someone recently say that the lunchtime at a convention was like our version of Tinder. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, yes, it was. It's
Yes.
literally what we did. What did we do? We couldn't wait till lunchtime because we would go and grab our croissant or what it was the special the lunches that they used to have. We'd go grab
Oh
that.
yeah.
We were cruising the halls,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So that's how we kind of met is we saw each other from afar. He didn't notice me at first and I noticed him, but I was like, oh, that's never going to happen. I was a really really shy girl at the time, hadn't really come into my own. And he ended up finding me later and coming and meeting me. And so that really was the point of everything else is history because we like were like this from that moment on, and we couldn't keep our hands off of each other. So we were typical teenagers, right? Just wanting to do typical teenager stuff, and we couldn't. So we hid it. We were deceptive. We took every moment to be alone that we possibly could. We like even manipulated our friends. Like it was what we did. But that of course led to sin. You know,
Yep.
in the eyes of Jehovah's Witnesses. It led to sin.
Mm.
And we did hide it for a while. And then I think I did get ratted out again. There was a friend, I think, that told her elder father. I'm not for certain. I don't know this 100%, so I can't say for sure. But he ended up telling my father something, and my father, like, I was actually out in service. So I was out in service, and we ended the service day, and someone was waiting there to tell me that you better get home right away. Your dad needs to talk to you. And I was just like, this is another elder telling me this. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, like, I was like, oh God. I was like, oh man, I got found out again. I was like, so I already knew, like, I knew it was coming. And so I go home. Sure enough, I'm getting question after question after question. Like, have you guys done anything? What have you done? I'm like, oh, we've just kissed and held hands. Again, I lied, right? I knew what the next consequences were. And as a 16-year-old, you're like, well, how do I avoid the consequence? I really don't want to, I rather just like kind of kick the can down the road and avoid the consequence if I can. Because at the point that I didn't feel guilty about it. I really didn't. I was in love to my teenager body, right? I was in love and I was doing what I was supposed to do. And that was the time that changed. It kind of changed everything because I had to eventually confess. But once I did that, it was a whole other process of kind of going down the road of being in front of three elders and having to confess basically things that you should never have to talk about as a young girl to three grown men.
No, it's the worst. I mean,
Yeah.
for those that have never been Jehovah's Witnesses, I don't think they fully can comprehend what it's like to be a teenager, whether you're a male or a female, but especially as a girl, sitting there with these three men asking you such inappropriate questions about what you did, what was touched, how far things went.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is so disturbing. It is something that I think scars you for life. It's horrible. And you, I mean, for myself, the few times I was in them, I knew my strategy was always, I'm a crier anyways, but like, just cry a lot, and hopefully that shows them I'm repentant, so I don't get
Mm-hmm.
disfellowshipped, because you know
Yeah.
what happens if you do get disfellowshipped. So I know your story. I've read your book. I know all about everything. But um, you ended up. This is the time, correct, that you did end up getting disfellowshipped, correct?
Yes, I wanted to.
Okay.
I went in
Okay.
there. I went in there with actually wanting to be disfellowshipped. And my boyfriend at the time went in with that same thing. I think we both like we basically went in. We're like, hey, let's shake on this. Like, let's both get disfellowship so that we both don't feel like one got disfellowship and the other one got away with it. So that is literally how we went into the whole entire process. I didn't cry. I was the opposite. There were no tears. You did not see me cry in front of them. I was like, yes, this is what I did, and I guess I'm sorry, but I'm not. And and realistically, there was actually an elder in there that I have to this day. I don't want to say I held a grudge from him, but forever, okay, because he was the absolute worst. But he basically read a scripture about being a harlot and a prostitute and all of these things, and he basically looked at me and said, "That's what you are." In so many words. And I remember as a young girl being like, this is a really wow. Like that he basically was shaming me for being this young girl that had no like was just a floozy. And I had this experience again with another elder that was actually one of my father's best friends. He had had too much wine at dinner, and he basically told me that I was a disgrace to my family and that I was a slut. Sorry, that's a lot.
Wow.
That's a lot
No.
on the video. But that was the time I actually left the table. I was so uncomfortable. I was bawling in the bathroom. We were out to dinner with this family. And this elder's wife in particular was a beautiful, beautiful person. And she felt so ashamed and disgusted that her husband even said that to me. She came into the bathroom, she hugged me while I was crying, and she apologized for him.
Mm.
I never got an apology from him. It was
Well, of
almost
course
like
not.
him and my father were like, they felt like they were supposed to say this awful thing about me or make me feel this shame, right? And it was it was sad, but I really feel like that's what a lot of the men that are the elders in the congregation, how they judge, how they feel superior, right? They're in this position of superiority and they want to make you feel this way. And man, they
Mhm.
used that against women, especially. I mean, I'm sure they did it to the men too. I know that they have, but against women, especially, they loved it. It's why it's so attractive to a narcissistic personality because they're like, oh, I thrive on this. I get to be of authority to you and tell you what to do and make you feel guilt and shame. They feel like they are God, right? They're like, well, we're
Mhm.
God's appointed men, so we're going to get to make you feel this way. You're going to sit here and feel all this shame. And realistically, you know, now, oh, if I could get in a meeting with them again, the things how I would just annihilate them would feel like so good. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
I'll just let them do them, you know?
Yeah, they're not prepared for that's something that I think speaking out as a woman afterwards and like finding your voice when you leave has been so like for myself personally has been super super important for me to just like to learn it's okay. Like you are allowed to be your own person, to have your opinions, to be loud about your opinions, and you're it's okay to fight back a little bit. And they don't want women like that in the organization. They will do everything in their power to avoid that because they don't like it. You're supposed to just sit there, be seen, be agreeable, and that's about it.
Yes, yes, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. And that was my father expected of me. And so when I
Yeah.
did this, like, and I shamed the whole family, that's what I was literally told. Like, you have shamed the whole family. You have defiled my name. Literally my dad's words. You've defiled our name. I was like, wow, that's aggressive. I remember driving home from getting disfellowshipped and my dad just laying into me. No one's gonna ever want to marry you because now you're not a virgin. Like you're tainted. Like men are not going to look at you the same way. It's going to be really hard for you to find someone that will want you in the same way, like someone like an elder or a ministerial servant. Like you're already being like groomed, right? To like
Mhm.
find this person that's in the superior position, to be the elder's wife, to be someone that's higher up in the religion. It's absolutely disgusting. You're being
Yep.
groomed. And it's like,
Mhm.
it is so abusive. So I remember just like, even though I didn't show my dad my tears, feeling like, oh my God, maybe I did just destroy my life. You know, maybe I will never make him proud because this is what I've done. It was almost like feeling like disconnected from my whole entire experience. I became very apathetic. I became very like, you know what? I don't know what to do. All I care about right now is this boy and how can I see him the next time? He became
Yeah.
my drug of choice basically because that was the only thing that kept me feeling like I was alive, to be honest. And so that just continued until my parents were like, we're cutting this off. We're not allowing you to see this boy anymore. And even though we tried a million types of ways. They ended up putting a restraining order on him. And I eventually had to let him go because I was underage. I was like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to go and live my life right now? Probably not. So I had to make the decision to stay and conform to what my parents wanted to keep the peace. And that's really what I wanted. I just wanted peace in our house. And so I let him go. I never spoke to him until I was 18
Mm.
and of legal age. And then I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'm getting really curious. I'd heard he got reinstated. I got reinstated. And there was girls talking about him. And I'm like, oh, hell no. What's going on? I gotta find out what's going on and see what is happening so that I can, really do I really still want this boy or what I feel. And honestly, when I opened that door again, all the rest is history. We ended up eloping, getting married, and I didn't know that I fell into a trap. And I didn't know at the time, right? I didn't know that what I was experiencing was really just a carbon copy of my father, having someone that is narcissistic and emotionally unstable and someone that can become very volatile and abusive. And I think, for anyone that has had that experience before, like there's no shame you really don't know anything different. So at the time, the first time that he ever abused me, we'd already been married. We'd been living together, not very long, honestly. We had just recently gotten married, and we got in an argument, and he became so angry, he suffocated me into a pillow on the bed. And all I remember is him having his head on my back of my head, shoving me into the pillow. Couldn't breathe. Obviously I'm fighting to be breathing, but in that moment it was like everything like stopped, like the world stopped, and I didn't know what was happening to me. I was shocked, right? Pure shock. And then finally he lets me out, kind of throws me to the side, and I run away because I don't know. Obviously, instinct, right? Body takes over. You run from your predator, and I just was in the bathroom crying. I'm like, well, what did I do? What did I do? Is this going to be okay? Of course, he comes back. He apologizes. He says, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to do that. I'll never do it again, which is the classic abuser comment. I'll never do it again. And I'd had that experience before, with my father. My father had been very angry with me one time, kicked me out of the house, shoved me around, threw me out the door. My mother was trying to hold him back. And my dad, of course, said, I'm sorry. I lost my anger. It wasn't my fault. I didn't mean to do it, right? All of the things that you hear from the abuser. And of course, I took it at face value. Okay, well, maybe he didn't mean to do it. He still loves me because that was my experience with my father. Well, my father still tells me he loves me. So this guy must still love me, even though he did this to me. And that was, the cycle that I stayed in for 17 years.
I think, I mean, I feel like there's something with this organization that almost, obviously not everybody ends up in an abusive relationship, but it's, I think, more common than not that there's some form of abuse in relationships, whether it's with your parents or with your mate or both, and you just kind of continue this cycle because you're just told to kind of, I don't even know, it's like just go along with it. My mom was the narcissist in our family, and she was the one who was constantly, and I didn't even know this was happening until much later in life. Like, my husband would start being like, do you realize your mom is constantly like mentally like putting you down and abusing you in ways like you just kind of accept, you just take it. You're like, yeah, okay. It's like you don't even realize it's happening. And it's just sad because in that organization as well, um, you're told to just deal with it. You're not supposed to leave. You don't leave abusive relationships. Um, in fact, I've had a lot of women that talk about how they go to elders to get like advice on how to handle it, and it's basically like, well, you must have done something to almost to deserve this. So if you could just explain a little bit about, for those that are like non-Jehovah's Witnesses, what is it like being in a marriage like that? Did you feel like you could ever go to anyone about it, or did you feel like you were silenced completely, like you couldn't do anything to get out or protect yourself? It was just kind of like you're stuck. This is your life now.
So I think there's some other components to this. And actually, I have talked to a lot of women too that have kept silent. One, I think it's pride. For me, it was pride. It was like, well, I saw my family dynamic, right? And it was like, let's pretend like we have it all together. We have all of the components of the perfect Jehovah's Witness family or the perfect couple. And that was what my parents experienced. And knowing the background of my parents, they did not, but they loved to portray that. And I was doing the same thing. It was almost like, well, if I tell anybody about this, then they're going to judge me, and then they're going to feel differently about him. And then I'm going to be judged for still staying with him. And then there was all those components. And then the other side of it is, well, if I get divorced, God doesn't love a divorcing, right? We're always told that. And so what happens to me after divorce? Oh, I'm pretty much looked at poorly in the community, which has happened to a lot of women that got divorced as a Jehovah's Witness. Some people didn't even believe their story, right? So I think for me, it was more of like, okay, well, I'm going to be looked at badly. And I also am going to disappoint Jehovah. For me, it was like, I did remember that too, because that was always in the back of my mind. Well, I don't think this is right. I need to stay. And so I think that I felt like I had to defend my abuser. And this is honestly something that a lot of abused women do. We defend our abuser. And when we defend him, we usually don't say who the real him is. We hide it.
Mhm.
We keep it in secret. It's almost like we hold the shame for them.
Yeah.
And it's it is sad, but that is the route that I took. And that kept me stuck because if I would have maybe just been able to express it or tell somebody, then perhaps that person could have kind of opened a door for me to say, you know what, go and get help or go and get someone that can support you and help you understand this or something. But no, I stayed silent. Nobody knew. Not even my closest friends knew. Nobody knew. To them, we looked like the perfect couple. People would be like, we saw you at conventions and we were always so jealous of your relationship. You guys look like the perfect couple that had it all together. And that's what we presented. We were really good. We were great actors. Great actors.
I feel like that's very common with those types of relationships. That, again,
Mhm.
like you said, you're almost like trying to shield them from their shame, so you
Mhm.
help put off this appearance of just like the perfect relationship, and
Yeah.
it's too bad. So tell me a little bit about. I'm trying to like I'm in my brain thinking your book, and I'm like, don't let's like, like I
Think
know
it
all
will
the
be
answers. I
that.
read the book. Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Um, I know you had two kiddos in this process of this marriage. Um, and like, let's talk about a little bit about, your involvement with the organization once you were married and a little bit older. So I know you were kind of like me. We were the rebellious teenagers, the boy crazy girls, the one that like pushed their limits. What did that look like once you got more settled, I guess you could say, as you aged? How
That's
involved
exactly
with this organization were you?
That's perfect saying it because yeah, once I was settled, I was like, oh, okay, well, I can't be rebellious anymore. I'm married. I'm locked down. So now I can just sit here and have kids and do the wifely duties I'm supposed to, right?
Yeah.
I would say I was all in. I was
Okay.
all in. I was drinking the Kool-Aid, girl. I was like doing all the things. And I wanted to do it for approval. That was it.
Mhm.
That was the only reason why I did anything that I ever did, to be honest. I'd pioneered before I had my first child because I was lucky enough. We owned a business and we did very well for ourselves, which also is not something you're supposed to do as a Jehovah's Witness, is have money. So they don't like you having a lot of money because when you have a lot of money, you have a lot of freedom. And that means that you're not dedicating your life to Jehovah and putting your money towards being a Jehovah's Witness, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we again were like we had our own business. I was able to be a stay-at-home mom. I was very blessed with that. Um, but that made me the first beginning of it was like, okay, I guess I'm going to pioneer because I'm not working. So as a witness, you're like, well, if I'm not working, then I have to be pioneering. That's what you're supposed to do. That's the path you're supposed to take. And so I did it, right? I went to pioneer school. I played the part. I hated every minute of it. Hated it. Loathed it. One of my best friends and I used to pretend like we rang the doorbell. Okay. Like we pretended. Okay. Like, and if I was with an elder or a circuit overseer doing this, I would pretend to ring the doorbell there too. Because I was like, I do not want to speak. I don't want to do this. Like, I loathe this. Like, I didn't want to do any of it. It was uncomfortable being the door to door saleswoman. Like, that was not my thing.
Yep.
I think a lot of people talk about that because like people are like, oh, I love service and it's so great. Like as a witness, like you're pretending like you love it. You put on this really good man, you do a good job playing the part, but everybody secretly hates this. No one enjoys this.
No,
Nobody.
it's
I've never
miserable.
no, I've never talked to one witness that's left or actually in that's like, you know what? I love doing this. This is so much fun. Being rejected day after day after day. Like it's a blast. No, this is not fun. Like so, but I played that part for a while and then honestly, I was so relieved when I got pregnant. I was like, oh, I finally don't have to pioneer anymore. Oh my gosh, this is
You
so
have a good
great. I don't
excuse.
feel guilty. Yeah, it was like my excuse. I was like, oh, I don't feel guilty not pioneering anymore. This is great. Um, But again, we were playing the part too. I mean, we had book study at our house. We were having get-togethers, and we were like trying to advance in the Kingdom Hall. So, my partner, my husband at the time, like he was wanting to like be a ministerial servant, and he got the part, right? He finally
Yeah.
got that, well, because we were doing the things to make it look like we were the perfect spiritual family, basically. And it took so much effort, though. It took so much of our energy. Like it depleted us. And then on the inside of our relationship, we were still fighting. There was still abuse going on. There was still neglect. There was still, our own woundedness that was going on in the relationship. It wasn't just my partner. It was also me, right? I was wounded from my father. I was wounded from my experience of childhood. And so we were playing out all these dynamics in really the most toxic relationship, but yet we were showing everybody else that we had it all together. So it was tough. But we kept playing that out, until eventually that kind of fell apart. My then husband ended up, committing infidelity, and that just shattered my whole world and our whole entire relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a At that point, were you guys having doubts within the organization? Were you still like fully like subscribing to it all, or were you kind of starting to like find yourselves on the outskirts when all of that was falling apart?
No, I was still all in. I can't
Okay.
say to his experience. I don't know. I think that he definitely was awakening long before me, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But he was still in it, because even after he had cheated, the only reason he came and told me and confessed, he told me, was because he wanted to see his sister in the paradise, because his sister had died
Mm-hmm.
when he was very young. And he came to me, he felt like he was very, like, he felt sorry. I mean, he was crying, and that was the reason why he told me. And um, that was a huge pivotal point in our marriage that completely changed everything, obviously, for so many reasons beyond Jehovah's Witness life. I mean, a woman, even outside of that religion, that is a huge breaking point. I ended up leaving
Yeah.
for a year and kind of, separating myself from him, trying to navigate things. But as any abused woman would, um, I went back. I listened to what he said. Well, you can't survive without me. And he was a mess when I left. I mean, he was like a wreck. I'd never seen someone be such a wreck. And again, I felt guilt. I felt guilt. I felt like, oh my gosh, I have to feel sorry for this man. He's all alone and he can't manage his life without me. Like, and I wanted to be needed. I
Yeah.
thought that was love. I thought being needed was love. And it just wasn't. And that ended me, going back. Unfortunately, I didn't, I finally was brave enough to make the breakaway, but then I ended up going back and being in that marriage, several more years, and then having another son, which, honestly, I can't say I regret now, because I have two beautiful children because of it. So I think everything works out the way it's supposed to. But now, looking back in hindsight, I would tell that version of me to keep going. You're doing the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me then, you guys were married 17 years. What did it look like when you started awakening from the actual world of Jehovah's Witnesses? What was your beginning of kind of the end, so to say? Like what did that look like for you?
Yeah. It looked like sheer terror, like a nightmare. Like,
Yeah.
is this my real life? Like, what's happening? He came to me late one night, like tears in his eye. I mean, he looked like a crazed man. Like, I was like, oh my God, am I going to just put you into the mental hospital, or what's happening? But he basically was confessing everything he had ever seen. He hadn't told me until that night. He finally said, I have to just tell you all of this stuff that I found about Jehovah's Witnesses. And it really started with the child sex abuse cases that were really a huge thing in 2016. It was all over the news. the Royal Commission in Australia and the governing body up there, and the kind of, the way they were evading questions and lying on the stand, and, really showing me all of these components. And I did exactly what a Jehovah's Witness is trained to do, what you are programmed and brainwashed to do. And that was, I was like, you're crazy. You've been possessed by Satan and the demons. What have you been listening to? What have you been watching? Get away from me. Like, you're crazy. Like, I can't even talk to you right now. Um, and he didn't stop, though. He just kept going. And thank goodness he did, because it started to sow the seeds of doubt that I needed, because I started doing my own research. So I started looking up the child sex abuse cases, and that made me question everything. Why would I want my children going to a kingdom hall that doesn't even claim who the child sex abusers are? If I know my next door neighbor is a sex abuse person or a child sex abuser, I'm going to want to know. I want to know that information, let alone in a kingdom hall that's supposed to be a safe place, right, for me to go and take my children. That really started to make me be like, okay, this doesn't feel good anymore. This doesn't feel right. And then we really started diving into 1914, the whole prophecy around that. And I think the biggest component was when I looked all the way back into the origin story of Jehovah's Witnesses compared to what we're told from the Proclaimer's book. And I did my own due diligence and all the research, and I started to see the things that just didn't add up. And the stories of 1925, of when Rutherford built like this house in San Diego because they claimed that, who was it? Like, I don't even know, like Enoch or Abraham and all these people were going to be resurrected, and they were going to save everybody from Satan's, system of things. And like, this was prophesied in 1925. Like, people that were following the Jehovah's Witnesses were believing that this was happening, and then nothing happened. And then in, the next one in 1975, when people sold their homes and people were doing crazy things because they thought Armageddon was coming. And so I was like, you're not told these things, right? You're not even told these things. And I had no idea it even existed. And I think that was the point where I was like, oh my gosh, we're actually following the leaders of this actual organization that are delusional. They're crazy. They're crazy.
Yes.
like legitimately, they're prophesying things that are crazy. And we are listening and we are following these people. It doesn't matter that it was the past. And you can try to make a million claims about, oh, they just found new light or what. No, that is crazy talk. That is them prophesying things that never happened and making people afraid. It's just all fear and control and domination, and really wanting to suppress and control a population, even though maybe small. Jehovah's Witnesses are small, but still, these people are being controlled and they're not aware of it. And that was when I was like, oh, wow, I can't believe that I survived this entire existence not knowing that I was being controlled. It really is hard to wrap your head around, and it felt like I had to shed layer by layer the control, the programming, the belief system that was really ingrained deeply in me, because I really did truly believe it with all my heart. And yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot to take in. I feel like those first few days of when it like hits you like a ton of bricks, when it's like everything's caving in, it's hard to, like, I know for myself, I was like, first of all, how did I ever believe this? Like, seeing it with like a new set of lenses on, like, how did I ever buy into this? How did I believe this? And then it's just like, you feel like your entire world is spiraling, because it's like, oh my gosh, you know what's coming. You're going to lose everyone. You can either fake it or you're going to lose everyone. And you are a mom like me, and it's like, pretty much deep down, like, you can't fake it for your kids' sake. So you have to start processing those losses, I think, almost immediately. So tell me then about, from you kind of waking up to your exit, how long of time passed, and what was kind of the backlash with you leaving and getting away from it?
Yeah. Honestly, when I figured out that I was in this religion like this, I decided that I also needed to end my relationship, my marriage, because my marriage was a sham as well. So I was seeing everything, my whole entire reality is like, okay, everything I've done up until now has been a complete lie. And that was a brutal awakening because then I was like, well, I'm going to go out here and do this all on my own. I'm not even going to have a partner to do this with. But I knew that I needed to do it. It had to happen. And so I just took that really big plunge. And at first I thought I could fake the religion, just like you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I already had an elder that was interested in me after my divorce and wanting to marry me and all of these things. And I was like, okay, well, I could do this and I could make my family happy and I could finally get my dad to approve of me and love me the way I want to be loved. I thought about all these things, but there was something inside of me, this beautiful inner whisper that was like, you can't fake this. It makes you feel sick. Like I literally physically would feel sick even going to the Kingdom Hall because it just didn't feel right to me. It no longer fit into the box that I had been surviving in. And so I just said, I can't do this. I can't fake this. There is nothing about me that wants to be fake or needs to be fake. I've never wanted to do that ever again. I don't want to pretend. And so I just took that plunge. And I mean, honestly, my parents fell off pretty quickly. I still kind of engaged with my children for a little bit, but I quickly saw that I couldn't depend on them. They were going to brainwash my kids, they were going to say the things they wanted to say. And they were also going to make me feel guilty and ashamed for the me even leaving, and I did have that experience. At first, my parents wanted to get me to talk to the elders. That was their first thing. You need to talk to the elders. We know you've done some bad things. They didn't know what I had done. They just wanted me to, they wanted me to comply to what they expected of me to do. And of course, to them, they're just serving their God and wanting to keep their congregation clean. And when I told my father, I'm not talking to any elders ever, and I don't want anything to do with the religion, that was when his anger just became explosive. I remember him saying to me that day that he hated me, you know, really didn't want to ever see me again. It was more of like, he ended up walking out of the house in such a rage because that was me standing up for myself, saying, no, I will not do this. No, this is not for me anymore. And you can't tell me what to do. He treated me literally like I was a teenager again in my 37-year-old body. And I was like, I will not let you do this to me. Sorry. And that is what it's like, standing up to an abuser. And that's the backlash you're always going to get because if you don't fit to where they want you to, they're going to act that way because they can't get their way and they throw a temper tantrum. And so that experience in itself made me realize very quickly I needed to step away from that relationship. I needed to do what I needed to do for myself and really be unapologetic going forward. And unfortunately, that now, I've been estranged from my parents for about 5 years. I've been out for 8. It's my 8-year anniversary just recently, but 5 years I have not seen or talked to my parents. And that's a grieving process all in itself.
Mm-hmm.
I grieve the fact that I've had to have that experience, that there was conditional love and they can't see what I see. All of those components, but it's about, realizing that what did I want to sacrifice? Did I want to sacrifice my own life to fit in, to belong in their world? Or did I just want to truly be free and live for myself and give my kids a different experience than I ever got to have? And I chose the latter.
Yeah, I feel like, especially as a mother, you at some point have to, you almost take those bullets to your back so your children get to
Yeah.
thrive. And, we can heal from that. We'll eventually heal from it. But our kids then get to like move on and they get to start a whole new cycle with their children's, their families eventually and everything. So, um, tell me a little bit about, um, why you chose, because I know you kind of started speaking out a little bit more recently, like on your YouTube channel and doing your
Mhm.
podcast and stuff, Cult Diaries. What was it that kind of triggered that to start happening for you?
Honestly, my book. So Shattered, Broken, and Beautiful. I started writing that, about 4 years ago. And that was when I really started my healing journey, was right actually after my ex-husband died from addiction. I really kind of, that opened me up even more to that I had so much deeper healing to do. And I just started writing it. I needed to pour out my story. And the more that I poured out my story and the more that I started talking about it in spaces, I realized this is bigger than me. Like, people need this story. People need to hear from all of us that have left and had to figure it out on our own. So it wasn't just any longer about my abuse story, because I have been talking about that for years. But now it's more about, okay, talking about what religious trauma does, what religious abuse does to you, what living in a controlled environment does to you. When you're told who you had to be, all of these components, it's deeply traumatic. Being told that Armageddon exists and that you're going to die at Armageddon potentially if you don't do what you're supposed to, like, those even components in yourself, it's deep in your subconscious. And I realized people need to know how to heal from this stuff and unravel this religious programming, because it's like running in the background of your mind. You're just not realizing it. And so it makes you afraid to leave. It makes you terrified that, well, what if I'm doing something wrong, even though you know it's not right, even though you've discovered maybe some things that are not true about Jehovah's Witnesses or what they're, preaching or teaching or the doctrine. You're still questioning yourself. Well, what if I'm wrong? Because they also instill that in you. They instill you.
Mhm.
Satan is lurking around every corner, and he's trying to trick you. So maybe you're just being tricked, and that's what you think. Okay, well, maybe I'm just being tricked, and that actually this inner knowing that I'm actually feeling right now, that this religion is not for me, is not true, and Satan's tricking me right now. So you stay. It's the same thing in an abusive relationship, right? You will talk yourself into these things to staying because of the voices that come up that have been instilled in you from people that are your abuser, or from the religious doctrine. And you're listening to these voices inside instead of this little whisper that says, this is no longer for me. This is not right for me. Yeah.
You knew people needed this. They needed this help from
Yeah.
all aspects, especially that religious trauma side of things. Religious trauma
Mm-hmm.
is intense, um, especially when you're born and raised in it. It's like
Yes.
everything you've heard from the tiniest little baby, it's formed you into who you were. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's very important, I think, for people to speak out, to show that yes, there is religious trauma and there's trauma that comes with leaving, and it's not easy, but like you kind of mentioned, that you have that little voice inside of you. You have to listen to that.
Yeah.
It's important to listen to that. That is our entire being saying something is wrong, something is off, do something about this.
Yes.
Um, so tell me now, I like to have kind of end things with a couple things. So tell me about how your life has transformed since leaving, and like what you're proud of since you've left. Obviously, your book is phenomenal. I can't say it enough. I love your book. But I know you've accomplished so much. So please, let's tell everybody some of the things you've accomplished since you've left.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you. Honestly, really healing myself from the inside out. I think I really celebrate that every day. How much inner work I've had to do on myself to not only find my voice, but to become really my authentic self and know that I don't have to have any shame around being that person. That judgment that comes from the outside world has nothing to do with me. And I think the biggest component of my healing has been being able to help others now. Going back to school, as a witness, you're told not to get extra education, right? And make something of yourself or have a career. And I went out and I created a beautiful business that, has helped others heal from not only, domestic violence and abuse, but also religious trauma. I've worked with other ExJWs that are, kind of spiraling, just like we felt afterwards, not knowing where their place is and not knowing what their community can be and not knowing what life looks like outside. Like, we all need a supportive hand. And now I get the opportunity to do that. And I think that has been the biggest gift for me is accomplishing that experience for others. Having walked the fire, knowing what I can give to other people to help them heal from this type of trauma and to be able to find themselves and who they really want to be because they were just told who they had to be. And now you get to be who you want to be. And you get to do the things that you never got to do before. So, and I always celebrate that in myself too, where I'm like, you know what, I've gotten to explore different things and do things that I never would have done before, like get a tattoo or, go travel and not feel guilty about it, or to go and like do things that you're like, this would be something that would be like looked at poorly. And, now celebrating holidays and getting to enjoy that experience, even though it's you have a different connection to it, being not raised in it, you still like, oh, well, this is fun. I get to just like let my inner child out and have some fun and let the kids enjoy it too, right? That's the fun of experience of being able to have life outside of being a Jehovah's Witness, and knowing that it doesn't have to be as scary as we all kind of felt in the beginning. I mean, there is that, of course, there's growing pains with everything, with change, right? We as humans, we really struggle with change. It's hard, but knowing that it is all possible, and it's invigorating to know that you can create a life that you've always dreamed of. It's just about being able to kind of take that leap of faith in yourself.
Yes, I love that. I agree. You just have to, the first leap is the hardest, and then you can start rebuilding your life from there. Yeah. So if you have advice for anybody who is currently sitting there watching this with those doubts and fears of leaving, or those that are just in the process of leaving and they're in that spiral, what would your advice be to those people?
Get support. Oh my goodness. Get support, get support, get support. Get someone that understands. For me, my first therapist did not understand cult programming or what being in a cult was like, or even experience of any of those things. And so I didn't feel like she could relate to me. And that really helped. That made me struggle, honestly, even more in my healing journey. But the minute I found a therapist that she was actually an ex-Mormon. So Mormonism is so, similar to Jehovah's Witnesses and that same type of programming. And so she understood me. She could relate to me, and she could really help me process the things that were kind of coming up in my unraveling, if you will, of what was coming up. And that was key. That was perfect. And then finding support outside of the religion. So if it's not a therapist, finding people that feel safe, that feel like, you know what, I can just tell you what my truth is right now, and I don't have to feel judged or afraid or anything. Like just finding people that you can relate with that can help a lot, because it can feel so lonely leaving, right? You lose all your community, you lose all your friendships. And that first, I felt like the universe opened up for me when like I just left, and there was people that would just drop into my world that made me feel like, oh, this is not going to be as lonely as I thought. This is going to be okay. Like even like people that were parent figures came into my life that felt more like a parent or a grandparent, just making me feel less alone, or a friendship that came along that made me realize, well, wow, this is what a real friend is like. She's going to be here and she doesn't judge me. It's just cool. We can just be our authentic selves, and there's nothing to worry about. I'm not going to be worried about being judged, and this is great. And, just those experiences in itself start to help. For me, it helps me realize that I could do those things, and that it wasn't going to be as hard as I thought it was. And I was going to learn how to create connection in my life.
Yes, I think it's so important to get yourself out there and find that community that you need. And it's the first time in our lives we get to build a community and support system around ourselves because of who we want people around us. It's not because like, well, they're in the congregation, so they have to be my friend, or, it's my parents. Maybe I don't get along with them that great, but they're my parents. Like you finally get to choose people in your lives that benefit you and are there for you unconditionally. It's really a really great experience. I think for myself personally, like even finding girlfriends that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can be myself around you.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're not going to judge me for anything. Like it's a beautiful thing, because I don't think we get that in the organization. Like you have family ties, but then it's like true friendships in it are like they don't exist. At least I don't think they do. It's all very like surface level, and I feel like there's a lot of levels of judgment. It's like, oh, it's my friend, but I know they're judging me for the car I got or what I'm wearing today or whatever it may be. So it's so dumb. I love that though. Um, so I mentioned this to you before we started recording about how I'm trying to start finishing these with like a silly little toast, since in the world of JW, they can now toast. It's no longer demonic to do. They can toast now.
So funny.
So do you have a good little toast you would like to finish off our little interview with? If you don't have one, no pressure.
No, totally. Cheers to critical thinking. My fake drink. Cheers
Yeah,
to critical thinking and freedom, for sure.
I
Um,
love it.
yeah, because that's where your power lies.
Yes, I love that. Well, I appreciate you so much taking the time to do this and sitting here and telling some of your story. Um, do you have certain social medias that you would like people to, maybe, I will include all of this into the description of the video, but certain like social medias you want people to find you on? I know you're kind of across all boards like I am. What would those be?
Yeah, they can find me anywhere, honestly. Life Coaching Goddess. So all of the socials, that's where I'm at. So they can contact me or get into my content or reach out, and if you just need some support, like, yeah, I'm here for that. It really lights me up to see other people do the inner work and heal from their past.
Good. And I will also include the description of your book. It was, again, so good, as well as your first book you wrote, which was The Grief Monster, which is such a beautiful book. We were talking about that this morning while I was telling Lance, who I was talking with today, and he was like, you need to tell her. I couldn't even ever finish reading that because it like brought tears to his eyes, and it was very emotional for him. So we will include both of those. If you want to tell a little bit about both of your books, why don't you do that now as well?
Yeah. So the Grief Monster obviously was inspired out of the loss of my ex-husband, but the father of my children. And witnessing their grief, honestly, I had grief too. I had known him since I was 15. There was grief, even though it was a tumultuous relationship, there was love there. And the grief that I experienced was nothing I had ever experienced before, in the pain. And so I just sat down one day and poured it into a children's book. And I knew what I wanted the grief monster to be and how I wanted him to present. And I knew I wanted it to reach little hearts that had lost somebody and didn't know what to do with the grief, because I saw that in my own children. And it's really tough. It's really tough to go through that process. And also, teaching children emotional intelligence is really important to me. I wasn't taught that as a child because we were told to not have feelings or talk about feelings. And so I really think it's an important part about being a very conscious parent and showing up in a different way for my kids now. And Shattered, Broken, and Beautiful is about losing my religion and finding faith. So, seeing through the generational trauma, the religious trauma, and what really happened to me, and being able to truly find what is my connection to a higher power, what is the connection to myself and my intuition, and what we're even doing here on this planet. And that is what my discovery has been so far. And I kind of put that into a book. And so far, so many people have reached out to me, saying how much it has helped them in their own journey of healing after leaving Jehovah's Witnesses. So it's been really a beautiful gift again, that I was afraid to put my story out there, but I got the guts to do it. And now I'm just glad that it has helped so many people.
No, I think it was amazing of you to do that. And as a friend, I'm proud of you. Well, I appreciate you again so much for being on here today. And for all of those who have sat through this conversation and been here to support, please leave some love for Brooke in the comments below. And also check out her books. Check out her social media. She's truly a great person. So again, I thank you so much for being on, and I will see you all next time.